Welcome to Philanthropy SA. This is a podcast about and for the philanthropic community in San Antonio and South Texas. We introduce organizations and people who are making an impact in the community. Beneficent Financial is proud to sponsor this podcast, and it is our hope that you enjoy this conversation about the impact we can have. The goal is to edify and inspire. Now please join our host, Dan Rebman.
Hi, welcome to Philanthropy SA. I'm your host, Dan Rebman, and very pleased today to be joined by Inga Cotton. She is the executive director of the School Discovery Network, which formerly was known as something else, but I'm going to let her tell that story. I don't need to get into all of that. And before we talk about School Discovery Network, which I am excited about because of the mission that it has and what it helps families do, tell us a little bit about you, Inga. What brought you to San Antonio, and why are you here?
Yeah, so I'm originally from California, and I moved around a lot growing up. And actually, we were talking about this before we got on the air. We have both lived in Germany. So my dad was working as a civilian for the Army and was wondering, where should I go stateside? Looking for adventure. Where's the opportunity? And the military people would tell him, oh, you've got to check out San Antonio. So he came to visit and fell in love with it. And so I landed here in high school. And it was kind of a culture shock because I had lived in California. I'd lived, in Germany but interacting with armed forces folks. And, but I also have fallen in love with Texas, and San Antonio is home now. But some of those experiences definitely shaped me, like, showing up at a big, comprehensive American high school and never having experienced like Friday Night Lights or just so many things about American culture, and being named Inga, and nobody would actually believe I'm actually American, which I really am. I am born in the United States.
Oh, no. But to your point, I even asked you, as you came into the studio, it's like, okay, so I haven't met many Ingas in the United States, but, several of them over in Europe. So
right.
I knew that there was a background there. But that's great. I'm glad you got here to San Antonio, like so many of us. And somebody told me on an airplane this weekend that San Antonio has two seasons. Really, really hot and only kind of hot. And so we're in the really, really hot phase right now. Looking forward to the not quite so hot phase coming up. So you come to San Antonio, you are working on some stuff, and tell me the story of kind of what got you into the nonprofit world, because I kind of get the sense that you weren't like classically trained to be, a nonprofit executive. You kind of fell into this. Talk about how that happened.
Yeah, that's true. No, I never thought I would do anything education related, although I should have known because there's a lot of teachers in my extended family. So I went to Trinity, and then I went to UT Law, and I wanted to practice law. And I very quickly burned out and just realized this is not what I meant to do. And I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So, but I was very lucky. I met my husband, who's a wonderful guy. We had two kids. I was working part-time at law firms. And then, raising my kids, realizing that I think from birth, I realized my son was wired up a little differently. And then when he was 3.5, we found out he has autism. And then that was a wake-up call for me that I'm going to have to work harder to be his advocate. I'm going to have to try harder to find schools that are the right setting for him. And so I started doing research, and hey, I am a lawyer, so I am a good researcher. And now I understand why I did that, like what path I was supposed to be on. And as I did the research, I realized there was not a good tool out there. I could dig through databases, I could read statutes, but I had a hard time, and I'm specially trained for this, like to be a researcher, not to know anything about education, but I have, instincts as a mom of like what's going to serve my kids well. And around the same time, a family friend, she also has kids about the same age, and we'd meet up for play dates in her living room. So, picture, crayons flying around, kids chasing each other with toys. And she's telling me about new charter schools coming to San Antonio. And I got really excited because actually my first college term paper was about school choice back in 1992. And the professor was like, this is a weird idea. Really? I'm like, yeah. It's really exciting. And then sort of set the idea aside and, didn't really feel like I could make a difference in it. But then as a mom being motivated, it's like, okay, I need to solve this for my own kids. And why don't I start a blog and share what I'm learning, and other folks can learn along with me? And same thing. And so I found out my friend is helping these new charter schools get established. In fact, I just drove by Basis, right? So they opened 2013, but the blog started in the spring of 2012. So actually, which I sometimes pinch myself, like I've been at this for a while, but I feel like the first 5 years or so were almost like an internship where my primary focus was raising young children, my son and my daughter. But I put any free time I could find into researching education, like what makes a good school and what tools do parents need to be able to research which school is going to be the right fit for their kids.
Super. And so originally when this all started, though, it wasn't called what it's called today, right? It had a different name back then.
That's right.
What is that?
That's right. So the original name was San Antonio Charter Moms because there were a handful of us moms who were all friends and curious about these new schools that were coming. And, it was kind of a collective effort. But then about a year ago, we rebranded as School Discovery Network because we realized we had really, as attached as I was to it, we had really outgrown that name because we do talk about a lot more than just charter schools.
Right. Yeah. You have information about private schools on the site, and I think some of the ISDs as well, right?
Yes.
So, it's not here's just your choice among the charter schools.
Right.
So walk us through some of the services that you provide and, kind of who uses those services and then, how you get the funding to be able to provide these services.
Yeah. So the initial project was a website. So it was a WordPress blog. And after about a year, we realized there was no list of, what are all the charter schools in town. So we created that list. That has evolved into our schools map, which is a really important tool and has more than just charter schools on it. And it's got guides to any kind of school that a family could choose, right? Maybe not your neighborhood school that you're zoned for, but any school that doesn't limit by what zone you're in.
Right, because like magnet programs at the ISDs, they're open to people outside of the normal,
Right. You don't have to live right there.
Right.
Yeah. And even, one of the big changes in the last year is that some of our destination districts like Northside and Northeast, now you don't even have to live in the district. Those are now open enrollment districts.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. That's a recent change. So the website evolved into the school's map, but there's still lots of what we call our evergreen content, or like education tips. So we just recently published a post about how to request a special education evaluation, and it's more complicated than you might think. There's timelines and stuff. It's very intimidating, but our team is really good at simplifying things and making it welcoming and accessible. So, and then we have a Facebook group, over 15,000 members in the group. I remember it took us 6 months just to get to 100, but now it's a really big community. People answer each other's questions in there. And back in 2019, we started having what we call school discovery days. And these are school fairs, and they've really grown. Like our first event had, maybe a dozen folks, but we've had this past year, we had events with over 1,000 visitors per event. We had over 50 tables of different schools and organizations. So families can do a lot of research in one day. And we go to really fun places like the zoo and the Dooseum.
There you go. So it's kind of like a job fair, but for schools?
Yeah, it's a family can shop among 40 or 50 different schools in one day, which is easier than. I'm a huge advocate for school tours, like going on site and meeting and talking to people, because sometimes there's sort of nonverbal cues or like a gut feeling that helps you feel like, okay, this is the right fit. But you can quickly meet a lot of folks at a school fair and come away with a short list and be like, okay, I'm going to apply to these schools. I'm going to visit these schools. And then you'll find, at least one or two that your kid's going to be really happy at.
Right. And so what are some of the things put yourself back in those early days. You're a mom of a kid and you're kind of suspecting, hey, maybe there's, something that's, that is going to mean that the learning is going to come in a different way than a mainstream type kid. What are some of those kind of signs that folks can be looking for to say, hey, maybe we're going to need to be looking at some different types of choices when it comes to education?
Yeah. I think every parent knows their own kid the best, and I think that's really important. I think everyone needs to trust their instincts, and also, talk to your friends, because what seems normal to you, your friends might notice that well, not every kid takes all their dominoes and builds a pyramid out of it and knocks it down, or lines up all their cars that way or something. So then you notice those unique things, right? Like, so like my son was an early reader and good at verbalizing with me, but he was not a good communicator with people outside the family. He would rarely speak at preschool. So things like that where development doesn't line up with what's expected, like that's a sign, it's like, yes, get the diagnosis, make sure that they're eligible for services. But also even like there's things like, if you have a kid who's really active and then you're like, okay, I need to find out how much recess time does this elementary school have, right? Or if you have a kid who's like super social and they're going to talk a lot, like find that environment where that's a strength and that's celebrated instead of being punished.
Sure. And so, but you also help families that they may not have any particular special needs, so to speak.
Right.
They're just kind of trying to identify the best school for them and for their child.
Yeah. I think one of the, as this has been a learning process for me, but that unfortunately there are way too many kids in San Antonio who are below grade level on things like reading and writing or math. And I want to point to City Education Partners, who's done some great reports on this. They break it down by city council district. And, in some parts of our city, there's like less than half of the kids are reading at or above grade level. Mm-hmm. And for math, it could be even lower. And so, unfortunately, what that means is, I think every nonprofit should ask themselves, how do I put myself out of business? How do I solve this? Right? Now, I don't think in education will ever solve it because parenting will never be solved, right? But my dream is that a kid could walk into any campus anywhere in San Antonio and get a great education. That's where we need to be. We're not there yet. Right now, there's too much variation. Like some schools are doing an outstanding job and they have the majority of their kids are achieving well, and other schools are, you look at the data and you wonder, like, why are these kids not being reached? Okay, do the people on campus have faith in these kids, right? Because every part of town, the kids can achieve, right? You can't write off certain parts of town or certain racial ethnic groups and say, well, those kids just aren't meant for college. That's complete BS. I reject that. I think any child anywhere has potential. And I learned that from my own son, with the special education label. Sometimes people would just write him off and say, what, you think he's going to go to college? Oh, Mom, your optimism is beautiful. I'm like, no, he's in college right now. He's a roadrunner. Go UTSA. Birds up, man. He's in college. And there were people who thought I was crazy to believe that. And I'm like, no. I know what's inside him. I will help him get there. And I want every family to believe that. Don't let anyone tell you just because you're from that part of town or parents don't speak English or parents didn't go to college, like every kid can achieve.
And so as you're getting that message out to people, what kind of outreach do you do in those communities, particularly the ones that may, for socioeconomic reasons or whatever, kind of feel like, okay, well, all we've got available to us is, our local school? Yeah.
Part of it is we provide our information bilingual, so English and Spanish, and our team. So I'm kind of a fuddy-duddy about how I use social media, and I tend to write long blog posts. But our team is great about making things really dynamic, like short videos, and getting those out to more markets. And one of the things we do is by our events, by offering free admission to great places like the zoo or the museum, it will attract families who want to have that experience for their kids. And then while they're there, then they also get the information about education. And I really want to open people's eyes that they're not necessarily locked in. Like they may have your neighborhood school may be the best place to go, right? We have some wonderful neighborhood public schools in San Antonio, but you do have options. So if your child needs a unique learning model, so we talk a lot about I have kids who like liberal arts, like they love reading and poetry and stuff, but they also love STEM, right? So my son graduated from a STEM high school. My daughter is currently at a STEM school and she's studying robotics and she wants to solve robot vision and, how are robots going to live in our houses with us? And I'm a little freaked out, but I think she'll solve it.
Well, as long as they do my dishes, I'm good with the robots. Just tell your daughter to get them doing the dishes for us, and then we'll be set.
She's fed up with chores, so she wants.
Then that'll be high on her list.
Yeah.
This is probably a good spot to stop and hear a word from our sponsor. We'll be right back.
What legacy will you leave? When those who come behind you follow in your footsteps, where will the journey lead? Will it lead to faithful stewardship of time, talent, and treasure? Will they become the beneficiaries of a life that was blessed beyond measure? Our legacy is being created with every decision, and what we invest in reveals our priorities and our convictions. In the end, did we build on reaction or intention? Short-sightedness or long-term vision? Survival and scarcity, or did we build with enough margin to live a life on mission? You see the future and the need to prepare. You have a dream of the life that you want to live and to leave, and we're here to help you get there. To a place where you're truly leading life instead of allowing life to lead you. Where investments are personal, multiplicative, and purposeful. To a place where you live a life of impact long after you've passed the baton, and what you set in motion continues with longevity after you're gone. It is possible that in the pursuit of purpose, we can leave a legacy of philanthropy and a lifestyle of service where you made every act of kindness count and every investment made the world a better place, no matter the amount. This is what success can look like when we team with intentionality to achieve more than we ever thought we could, where our mission meets your life's vision and where you're set up to do well so that you can do good.
Thanks for joining us today on Philanthropy SA. I'm joined by Inga Cotton. She is the executive director of the School Discovery Network. And something happened a few years ago here, Inga, that I think probably had a pretty profound impact on school choice in the state of Texas, where some funding became made available. And I'm surprised how many people still aren't even aware of this. Can you kind of walk people through, some funding that the state has made available to people as they're making these decisions?
Yeah. So one of the biggest changes, so Texas basically went from 0 to 60 in 1 year in terms of private school choice. And it's called Texas Education Freedom Accounts. And right now with this school year, this is the first time that there are students attending private schools or homeschooling with financial assistance from the state of Texas. And this has been a big project that we've worked on in the past year, is trying to make sure families are aware of this and that the families who need it the most can access it, because the highest priority goes to families with kids with special needs who are low to middle income.
Okay, and so these are funds that are then available. That do the funds go directly to the families? Do they go to the schools? How does that get distributed? And how does somebody who is like just hearing about this for the very first time say, "Oh, wow, I need to find out more"? Yeah, so we have a Texas Education Freedom Accounts tab on our website, and right now there's an interest list that families can sign up for. And if they sign up for that, they'll get notified when the next application cycle opens. So the best thing to do right now is research and look at different private schools. And on our website and also on the state portal, they'll tell you which private schools are accepting TEFA funds. So it could be $10,000 per year towards tuition. The money doesn't go to the family; it's in a portal. And so what you do is you'll log in and you'll say, okay, my child's accepted at this school, right? Like San Antonio Christian School. And then you designate a certain amount of money to be sent from your wallet to the school to pay for tuition, but also meals, uniforms, school supplies. It can also go to educational therapies, and that's really supportive of the kids with IEPs. Very good. And so what is your website? Let's give the URL for your website people can find it. It's
schooldiscoverynetwork.org.
Schooldiscoverynetwork.org. No punctuation, just slap it all together like one big long German word. So I had to throw that in there since we were talking German earlier. But yeah, schooldiscoverynetwork.org, and that's where you can find out information about getting on that list so that you'll know the next time a cycle starts up and can get access to some of those funds. And that brings up another issue. So what do you say to the folks who say that all of this choice in schools, whether it's charter, private, with the TEFA funding and that type of thing, is weakening the public schools or is detracting from the concept of universal public education that way?
Yeah, I think what it is the world is changing, and the world of education needs to adapt and serve students and families. And I think what we saw is that the old model wasn't working anymore because it's really hard for one building to serve every student who's in that geographic area. And what we're seeing is jobs are changing. Like, what are we preparing students for? And how do we keep, especially teenagers, how do we keep them engaged with learning? We need to paint a picture for them of a future where they can be citizens, they can be engaged, they can be productive. It's like, you don't drop out of society and just give up. Instead, think about, what are you passionate about? What problems do you want to solve? And I think schools that have specialized learning models do a great job with that. So maybe they want to learn about phlebotomy or welding or whatever. Then you come out of high school, you're ready to hit the ground running with that, right? Or my daughter in her STEM program, there's but it starts even younger, right? Like families who want a Montessori model because they want their kids to be really hands-on with their learning. Yeah,
and we've seen the job training type programs that occur and that type of thing. I mean, my daughter teaches at a high school out in Kirk County, and they have, people graduating from high school, with their LPNs and ready to go and do that work. And so there's specific career fields that you can do. And of course, that's been done in some of the magnet programs for years. And so those types of programs are out there. But I think, as people get the opportunity to look at all the options that are available and figure out what fits best for them. And that may be, it may be homeschool, it may be a private school, it may be a charter school, or it may be the local public school. But getting that information and making that choice proactively and saying, no, this is the best place for our kids. I think that's kind of what you're trying to do.
Yeah. We don't want, I guess when the blog started, either there weren't enough high quality options, or once they started to open, they'd have huge waiting lists and families would get really discouraged. And instead, we're in a different environment now, which is better. Like, even really good schools don't tend to have such long waiting lists. It's much more hopeful. They're like, oh yeah, we're going to get in. And also, what's exciting about how things are now is that there are so many choices to choose from. We just want to help families understand them and not feel overwhelmed by the amount of choices they have. But we've got tools that help them understand, like, okay, if my kid has these interests, let's focus in more on this type of school.
Yeah, and so one of the things that happens we know studies, too much choice is actually, paralysis by analysis. Right. This is kind of like the Cheesecake Factory menu concept, right? You go to Cheesecake Factory, they got all this kind of great stuff, but it's almost too much. You got to kind of narrow it down and figure out what you're going to do. And that kind of thing. Now, the opposite end of that equation is Cane's Chicken. It's like, okay, how many strips do you want? And do you want coleslaw or not? Because that's really your only choice there. I have no idea why I decided to go down the food road down here, but I have a hunch Catherine won't edit that out for me. Anyway, so Let's back up a little bit. And so, we talked about, what your organization does and that type of thing. But, you were a person who founded this organization because you saw this hole in services and said, okay, well, we're going to come up with something and do this. Okay. And then you found yourself running an organization. And I know that you went through a program offered through Social Venture Partners called the Fellowship, which is designed for people who are running an organization and need help, not with the delivery of the services, because you already do what you were doing there and what you were trying to do, but the notion of how to run an organization. So talk a little bit about what the Fellowship did for you and, kind of what you got to learn through that process.
Yeah, well, I'm really proud that I was part of the inaugural group of the SVPSA Fellows. And so we were the guinea pigs, but it was a great experience. And it came at a great time for us because the organization was kind of a passion project for the first 5 years. And then in 2017, we got funding, but we used a fiscal sponsor for about a year. And then 2018, we got our determination letter. So we were officially a nonprofit. And then the inaugural year was 2019, 2020. So it was at a point where I had a lot of questions about how to run an organization well, especially in areas that are outside my area of strength, right? Like, so I would say anything about finance or accounting, like I had sort of a handle on like small business concepts, but, I just needed to be really open to new information. And also I needed a place where I could ask stupid questions and not be embarrassed. And I thought SVP did a great job of bringing people in who were like both super knowledgeable, but also non-judgmental and really good listeners. And our cohort really bonded and, we felt safe asking anything around each other. And it was, for the most part, folks who I think like us were in a sort of, growth or reimagining phase, trying to set up new processes or, expand their team or learn how to delegate things better. Yeah. So everything came from a place of caring.
Sure. And so with that, you're still in touch with some of the cohort people today, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And so that's really, I think, one of the neat parts about that program. So if you want to know more about the fellowship, it was just a couple episodes ago, we were talking to Becky and Harriet about social venture partners, and encourage you to listen into that. As we record this, it's very, very late August of 2026, and we just done the selection for next year's group. So it'll be next spring timeframe or early summer, call it May, June timeframe, when folks who are interested in the fellowship will be able to apply again. So a not so shameless plug there for social venture partners in the fellowship. One of the things that, you've already mentioned some other agencies or entities that you work with. Talk about the collaboration with other folks that are in the education space. I mentioned that because when you were talking about reading and that kind of thing, I'm thinking about my friend Charlotte Bell at Project Transformation, and they work on getting people to maintain their reading levels over the summer so they're not coming back. So, there's all these organizations and how they fit together. Talk about some of the organizations that you've worked with over the years.
Yeah. So, we're always trying to watch what different government entities are doing because, so much of education relies on state policy. And so I think that, I really encourage people to watch what's happening at the state legislature and the State Board of Education because we're always trying to adapt to what folks are doing. But then I think locally, I guess our role is to be this information source for families, and I feel like that there are a lot of great programs that just aren't reaching enough families yet. And so, although our events primarily involve schools, we will bring in non-school organizations, and we'll also feature them on our social media or other channels because, I think whatever a family is trying to do for their kids, there's probably a program out there, but the family may not be able to be matching up with that organization or with that service. One thing I've noticed also is that there are, I've lost track, but there's dozens and dozens of charter schools in town, but they're not necessarily organized in big districts or networks the way. Right. San Antonio has a lot of independent school districts, right? Unlike, Austin, Dallas, or Houston, we have, depending on how you count it, about 18 different school districts that cover our county. But the charter schools are even more diverse than that. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes these nonprofits want to communicate with charter schools, but they don't know how to track them all down. So we have an email list of stuff that goes out to schools. So we're able to kind of elevate professional development programs for teachers, and they want to reach out to charter schools, but just don't know who to talk to.
Mm-hmm. So charter schools don't have, the same, I guess centralization of some of those kinds of things that you see in the public school system. What about on the homeschooling side? Is that something that you help people decide about as well?
Yeah, we do. So I think homeschooling gets trickier once your kids get to the high school age because then you're trying to build a transcript, you're trying to prepare them for college applications and stuff. So one of the things we do is we'll connect people with different services that help with things like that transcript writing. And I think one of the myths about homeschoolers is that they're actually not home that much. They're out exploring our city as much or even more than the kids who are in a physical school building.
Sure.
So we're encouraging those families to connect and, make use of the resources that are out there.
Yeah. And I know there's resources for folks you get to certain levels of particularly math and science at the high school level, and not every parent is prepared to teach all of those things. So I know they'll band together and have people, with more specialized training in those areas, help in that, particularly as you get into the more advanced levels that way.
Mm-hmm. And actually, that's something that the TIFO funds can do. So if you're I can teach the humanities but not the math and science to my high schooler, then even charter schools or traditional public schools can sell a la carte those advanced classes.
Very good. I didn't know that you could go in for just science or just math and that kind of thing. So that's interesting. talk about, do athletics figure into this equation at all as people are trying to figure out because, shopping for the right sports team, I think, has been around since before charter schools were around. So,
yeah, I'd say sports is a factor when families are researching schools, and some charter schools offer a pretty wide variety of sports. But I would say like tackle football is not as common among charter schools. It's an expensive sport to run, so you might find flag football maybe, but maybe not. There's a few charter schools that have like full on football teams and marching bands and cheer and pep and all that. But so that it's definitely a factor because, some people would say, well, that's not academic, but it builds cohesion. It builds a school culture and school community. So sports are a factor as far as so sports are not included in the Texas Education Freedom accounts stuff. But, I'm a big fan of you should listen to your kids, find out what their passions are, and, support them as best you can in whatever they are curious about, because you don't know what it might lead to.
And beyond athletics, you've also got the arts with, whether it's drama or band or, those types of things as well that, some kids might be interested in. And it's important to know whether a school has that program or not.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's even things like I met some folks who their business is 3D printing, and they work with government contractors and the military. But then they also will help homeschool pods set up like a 3D printing class, and they'll teach kids how to use CAD and print the pieces that they've designed and stuff. So even beyond things that didn't exist a generation ago, and now it's like, yeah, I know somebody who does that.
Very good. Okay. So as we are recording this, school's been going on 3 weeks already and that type of thing. Is it too late if a parent's like, wow, I don't think this is the right fit for my kid? What are the options now, or do they just have to tough it out until the semester end or something?
No,
like that?
It's definitely not too late. I mean, some charter schools have limited enrollment, so they may just be full. So, but that's not true as much as it used to be. There's more supply now. More good schools have opened. And actually, we have a feature on our website where you can click open seats, and we're always checking with schools about what grades they have that are open. So if a family needs to make a switch quickly, they can zero in on the ones that have open seats. But they still need to ask those questions about what's unique about my kid and what's unique about the school. And, definitely do things like go on a school tour, ask questions, maybe observe a classroom if possible. And then, there will be a place for your kid. I feel like there were times I felt discouraged and I just kept searching. And there are some really amazing places in this town.
There are indeed. So, Inga, I think you've got a big event coming up that for people who are listening to this right after we record, because both of my subscribers, are diligent about, doing that. Hi, Mom. Tell us about an event you've got coming up in October.
Yes. Okay. So on October 17th, we're going to have our first School Discovery Day of the upcoming season. And it's going to be at the San Antonio Zoo. And we're going to have a whole bunch of schools there. And the first 1,000 people who register will get free admission to the zoo for the rest of that day. And registration opens on August 31st.
August 31st, registration opens. October 17th is the date, and you get to go to the zoo for free.
That's right.
It's like a timeshare. You just have to listen to it. No, I'm kidding. It's not like that at all. But you do get the opportunity to hear from a bunch of great schools if you're interested.
That's right. And they'll be giving away stuff like, slinkies and pencils and things like that.
Yeah. So, who doesn't want swag?
Right.
Great. Thanks for telling us about that. So we're kind of getting up towards the wrapping things up. What is something that, you were hoping I'd ask you about that I didn't, or just something you want to make sure that the audience gets a chance to hear?
I hope that people don't come away overwhelmed. I hope they feel excited about what the potential is out there. But if they do feel overwhelmed, that they come to us and we will help break it down. So if they want to, like you said, on their website, schooldiscoverynetwork.org, the school's map, we have a starter guide, and we also have lots of blog posts that explain different kind of education and parenting topics. They can join our Facebook group. We have a weekly email newsletter. So we really wanted to get the information out there and help people feel more confident about that they can find the right choice for their kids. That's sort of at the family level, but also I want people to feel optimistic about education on the community-wide, city-wide or statewide level, because I'm optimistic about the changes that are happening. And I know that sometimes there's, clickbait or noise in the news, but fundamentally, I think there's a lot of care about the quality of the education that kids are getting. Are they learning reading, writing, and math? And are they able to explore their interests? Are they getting ready for careers that are going to be meaningful in the future. I think there's a lot of reason to be optimistic. And I also think that in our community, there's funders, philanthropists that are watching this issue, that care about this issue, that are investing in this issue. I want those folks to feel hopeful and not discouraged about, well, we've been trying for so long. I really feel like some things are breaking loose now, and we're going to see a lot of positive change in the near future.
Very good. So on behalf of Philanthropy SA, I'm your host, Dan Redman. Thank you, Inga, for joining us today. It was great to hear about your program. And I just want to remind everybody out there to do well so you can do good.
Thank you for joining us at Philanthropy SA. We hope you found something to inspire you during today's conversation. If you know organizations and people who are making an impact in the community, we would love to hear about it. Until next time, do well so you can do good.